All right, welcome to the One Hand at a Time podcast. I'm the host, Chris Welton, and I have a very special guest today. Personal connection for me. I just want to give you some information about him real quick before I introduce you to him. He is a podcaster and author, a keynote speaker, an industry leader, a coach, a family man, and for my life, he was a life changer, and most of all, I get to call him my friend. So welcome, Coach Bill Hart, to my podcast today.
Buddy, what a pleasure it is to be hanging out at your podcast. I love that you have a podcast, so it's fun
so
to be
cool.
here.
So cool.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Yeah, definitely. You know, it's crazy how this has all transpired, Bill, over the years. We met in 2006, and here it is 16 years later. So much has changed, right? So much has
Oh my
changed.
goodness. Absolutely.
And I would say that I wouldn't be standing here or sitting here right now if I hadn't made that connection 16 years ago.
Oh,
You gave
buddy,
me,
I'm so glad to hear that. I mean, it's been my honor to walk beside you. And if in any way I could nudge you or encourage you or help you to see something, ask some good questions, that's been my honor.
yeah, I'm all in with the good questions. All in, no pun there. So I wanted to start out with Bill is what is great in your life right now?
Oh my goodness, man. It's such a long list, but I mean, the short answer is family. Like my family is amazing. It's a huge blessing. I mean, let me just give you can I give you a quick, very specific example of this?
Please.
So my wife, Tony, and I have been married 32 years. And this morning I come downstairs and by the coffee machine last night, because I get up a lot earlier than she does, she has put this handwritten note, which is a little hard to see, and it's backwards. So I'll just read it to you. It says, I'm so proud of you and appreciate all you do for us. I'm in love with you, exclamation point. 32 years down the road. Life is good.
That is, that's Bill, that is so amazing. I'm fortunate enough to have something very similar in my life now with my wife, Nikki. And that is just like,
I know.
People that have that understand it, right? Like if you sell it to somebody who doesn't have that in their life, they're not going to understand it really. Like it's not.
Goodness, dude. And I'm sad for them because I know that I've been that person. I know you've been that person, and just not to take us down a rabbit trail here, but it's probably a pretty important thing to land on for a second. If you are in a moment right now where you do not have what we just described, I would just encourage you to do everything you can to make that better. Make that better, because when you have the fullness of a relationship like that, everything is better. Everything is amplified. It's as though I view my life through those lenses, the lens of a great relationship. My love affair with Tony is remarkable. And the truth of the matter is, of all the people I could spend time with in the world, she's my first choice. Always. And it only happens. It's not like I got lucky. I did get lucky, but it happens because you invest in it. Chris, you've invested in your relationship. I invest in my relationship. And so before we get into anything else, man, that's a great place to begin. Like, build an awesome relationship. If you haven't been on date nights every week, through COVID, like now's a good time, man. Step that game up.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's something we definitely need to invest in consistently. And I feel the same way. Like I used to go on boys trips and do all these things in previous life. I'm more interested in hanging out with my wife. Like that's my best friend. And I don't want to do something without her. And I'm traveling a lot for business right now. And it's tough sometimes to be gone. And I'm sure you feel the same way. I miss her as soon as I leave.
Yeah. So build that relationship. I'm not saying go find somebody else. I'm saying build that relationship.
Yes. Let's be clear. Let's be clear.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't need any hate mail.
No.
But it's just like anything else. You get out of it what you put into it. And those little notes like that. And I'll tell you something. I've been with my wife. I'm gonna have to do the math here real quick. So 124 months. And the reason I know that is because I've sent her flowers once a month for 124 consecutive months.
Dude, I love that. Come on.
Yeah. So,
Chris,
but hey,
that's a great story.
When you get a 12 and you've had a 6 for a little long time, like you're better put the 12 out there, man. You better bring it all the time. So
yeah,
that's
By the way, can I just call out the obvious? The fact that you just counted to 124 with one hand is pretty impressive.
Yes, it's amazing, right? It's
You're
amazing.
really good.
Hey, I did very well in the math portion of my SAT. Very well on the math portion, without a doubt.
It's a strength for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, I should be decent at math compared to for what I do for a living, right?
Right?
Yeah. So let's go
Yeah,
from
dude.
what's great to what are your current challenges?
So it's interesting, man, because it's one that I see with a lot of my clients. And think of it this way. If you've ever walked into a buffet, we used to have a lot more of those before COVID than we do now. But if you've ever walked into a buffet and you just kind of look around and it's like, man, there's so much. Even now, if I go to a conference or a wedding or something where they've got like the buffet line set up, I will always, because they start with salad, right? Always.
Mhm.
I will always look ahead, like at the end, like what? Yeah, but what's down there? Because I don't want to take up too much room on the plate with salad.
Yeah.
If you're telling me there's like beef and chicken and salmon down there, right?
Yep.
So that's kind of my challenge right now professionally is I have so much opportunity that I have to remind myself what I've always reminded my clients. I probably said to you before, not original thought to me, but it's like, you got to say no to the good to say yes to the great. So here's what I figured out in my life, and this is my challenge. There are only three things Bill Hart should ever do. I should coach, I should present, and I should create content. Those are the only three things that I should do. And anytime I'm pulled away from those things, it sucks my energy. I'm not great at it. It's the whole EOS thing, right? With the four quadrants. It's like,
Yep.
I just need to stay in my lane. So that's probably it for me right now. I have so much opportunity and only so much calendar space. And part of that is at this stage of my career, I just noticed that all of my calendar in Calendly ends at 2022, and suddenly people were starting to book January and February, and I didn't have my block in there. My time block wasn't created, right? So what that means is I have 7:30 to 9:30 every day, 30-minute break, 9:30 to 10, 2 more hours, 10 to 12, 2 hour lunch for a nap, workout, and lunch, not necessarily in that order, from 2 to 4, or sorry, from 12 to 2, and then 2 more hours that I work from 2 to 4. And Fridays are on days unless they're golf days, meaning I'm working on my business rather than in it. So my point to you is when the opportunities come up, when I walk into the buffet, they've got to fit into those modules that I've left open in my calendar. So my hope is just those two things mean something to your listeners, your viewers right now. And that is number one, I know what I'm good at and I stay in that lane. Number two, I recognize that my week is already built around a time block, a perfect week, and I don't deviate from that. So like right now, I just had somebody for a speaking gig, and it's like January's booked, man. I can't do January. Let's talk about February. Whereas in the old days when I was building my business, I'd be like, yeah, let's make that work. I can get from Cincinnati to Tulsa to Seattle. That shouldn't be hard, right? So there you go.
Well,
There's my challenge.
yeah. So let's unpack that just a little bit because obviously you've been doing this for a long time. So it's I love to be able to connect with somebody who's already mapped out get through some of the challenges I'm starting to face now, right?
Yeah,
So
man.
when you book that calendar, let's go first of all. So 2 hours a day, you got to work out and a nap. That's awesome.
Every day.
I mean,
Yeah. Do you want to know why?
yes, please.
I mean, I think that probably strikes people as unusual, particularly people that are like having a working lunch and they're just hammering through and, scarfing down fast food while they're working. I just recognize for me, so I'm up. Let me build what I call my bookends. My bookends are, I'm up at 4:45 because I have a 5:10 Bible study with guys on the East Coast where it's 8:10. Like whatever, I'm the one that has to be there at 5:10. But whatever, it's a 20-minute Bible study. It's awesome. We do it every single day. Sets my track exactly the way I want my day to be. In order to do that, I go to bed at 9 p.m. at night. So it's easy for me to take these things for granted when I know that we have viewers and listeners right now that are like, dude, I mean, I wake up when I wake up. I watch a little Jimmy Kimmel. I maybe, I'm in bed. I got my iPad. I'm on my phone. I don't know. I'm probably asleep at 11:30. And then when you ask them what time they wake up, they say, well, which means there's no definite time. You know, you've got David Goggins behind you there. For those of you that are
Yes.
not familiar with Goggins, he's kind of the ultimate discipline machine. And so what we know is highly effective people create their bookends. So for me, Chris, that's where it started. I created my bookends. Then this was all built around 72 coaching clients 20 years ago. This is when I built my time block the way that it is. But the thing that I realized is I always needed a nap every day. 20 minutes. I put on Bose QC35 noise canceling headphones and I listened to ocean waves
Nice.
for 20 minutes. And that's it, man. I just, that's all I need. And I recharge and I have lunch and I work out and I'm back in the game. So I know a lot of people, and I cannot argue with it, love the early morning workout. I understand the logic of that. But my early morning is so early, I just shift it to lunchtime. So for somebody, that might be a great aha. For somebody else, it might be like, yeah, not a chance in the world. And you should know I work out of the house. Like this is a home office setting that I've had for the last, I don't even know, man. I don't think I've worked in an office for 25 years. So it's a little easier for me, you know, taking a shower at 1:30, right? Like that works.
You know, I think what's important is that people need to realize that you can map out your own schedule if you do it the correct way. You don't have to follow somebody else's lead. Like I'm very regimented. Of course, I work out first thing in the morning, but the way you have it set up works out for you. It benefits you. And if you're in sales and listening to this, mortgage industry, real estate, or whatever, and you have a flexible schedule, there's nothing wrong with putting that self-care in the middle of the day if that's what it takes to keep you on track.
Yeah, buddy. I probably said to you at some point in our coaching relationship, on your terms,
Yes.
or in your case, on my terms, first person. I believe you have to build a life and a business on your terms. And so these are mine. This is just the way that I show up. It's not anybody else's schedule. This just works for me. And it's fantastic. And so to be done at 4 p.m. means I have time to run some errands, do some projects, do some things. It's, you know, I used to have a client. This is a guy who he owns 200 rentals. Think about this for a second. He owns 200 rentals. It took a 90-day sabbatical the last year I coached him. 90 days.
I think I know who this is.
Call that retirement. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
mean,
pretty
it's
sure
crazy,
I know who this
right?
is.
To that point about creating your own schedule, we were in a coaching session and he was telling me that his wife was giving him a hard time about the fact that their 2 young kids at the time were not seeing him in the evening before bedtime. Like he would sneak into the room and he'd kiss them on their forehead, right? But they weren't seeing him. And she laid the law down like, this is not okay. The kids need to see you. And he tells me this in a coaching session. And you know now, because now you're doing this as a coach, you can't tell me something like that and have me not do something with it. So I'm like, so
Exactly.
what do you think you ought to do about that? And he said, I guess I should establish a time I should go home. And I said, good point. And I want you to create it as a recurring appointment in Outlook and take a screenshot of it and send it to me. Like, show me that you've done this. So in his calendar to this day, just spoke to him recently. I'm not quoting it verbatim, but it was like 6 p.m., dinner's on the table, family's waiting, go home every day. I just hung up with a guy who probably made $800,000 last year. He's single. He's kind of terminally single at 43 right now. And he can't have a relationship because he's available all the time. He's a mortgage lender. A realtor just posted on his Instagram account last week. I saw it and had a conniption fit because all the realtor is saying is, man, this guy is available 24/7. I can call him at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. It's the best thing ever. And I'm like, no, run away screaming. Like, this is not okay. This is not your unique value proposition, is being on a short leash 24/7. Come on.
Especially if you're at a point where he is. Obviously, he's a very good producer. So if you want to offer that service, build a team around it that takes care of some of that. But
Is this the
for
preach
me,
emoji? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. For me, we have to have a relationship that my referral partners respect, right?
You bet.
And I respect them. And I tell the LOs that I coach and that work with me right now, look, you're not a surgeon. So if you miss a call at 7 o'clock at night, it may feel like someone's going to die, but no one's going to die.
Nobody's going to die.
We need to take care of you, right?
Yeah.
And if you lose a relationship over that, then you need to go back to and figure out, when you build your relationships, set them a certain way. Now, when you're new in the business, you got to go as much as you can, make it work. But when you get it built up like that, 800,000 in income, you can be a little more flexible, and people will respect you. I mean, they'll wait for you. If you're good enough, people will wait.
Absolutely. And so he's only just come into my ecosystem, right? So we're just starting to have this conversation. And here's the advantage I have over you as a coach. I can point to the gray hair because we're always on Zoom now, right? I used to coach for the first 19 years of my career. It was by phone. I can point to my gray hair and say, so I'm going to pull out my grumpy old coach right now and just speak truth to you. Okay, what's that? Well, your schedule is BS. It's nonsense. You're buying into savior syndrome. Only I can do it. I'm going to make this happen. But in the meantime, you don't have a serious girlfriend. You can't take a half a day off. You can't play golf, let alone go to Kauai or Italy for 2 weeks. Like, this is unsustainable. So you can fix it now or you can fix it later, but you're either going to have a carotid artery blow, or a relationship's not going to develop, or you're going to miss out on some life. But we can either jump into this now or later. Your call.
Yeah, I mean, what great advice. So since you said carotid artery, can we jump into a health question real quick first?
Let's go there.
And a lot of people don't know this. I've known you for a really long time. So you're a cancer survivor times 2 or 3?
3.
3. Yeah.
Yep.
3. And the reason I brought that up is because we get so involved in making money and doing these other things, we don't think about taking care of ourselves. So 2 weeks ago, I went to a friend of mine who's a cardiologist I grew up with. He did this thing called the calcium score, where they did a CAT scan of my heart and then an ultrasound of my heart. So I'm happy to say that my calcium score was 0. I have 0 plaque buildup in my heart at 50 years of age. And when he did the ultrasound on my heart, he said, if I didn't know you, I'd say you're 25 years old. And
dude.
Yeah, it's awesome. But I'm saying that because I think everybody needs to do that and know what you have going on.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So for me, it was like, great, I can eat more French fries. I'm okay.
Right.
But
let's have that conversation, because so I'm 67. I was diagnosed with colon cancer at 40. And you're not even supposed to start looking for it these days until 50. You're due probably for a colonoscopy, or you're going to need to have one.
Already had one, but yeah.
Okay. I mean, unless you have family history or some other reason that, they should do it. So, but here's the thing. My beautiful bride, Tony, that I told you about earlier, was the only one with any kind of common sense in our home, because I was attributing my symptoms, without getting terribly graphic, to stress, as guys do. Like, well, whatever, I just got a lot of stress right now, right? And she's like, maybe, but you know what? You should probably see a doctor. Well, thank God I did, because I went in, the tumor was palpable, meaning the physician could feel it. And he just said, we got to get you in. And I had 4 opinions. The first 3 all said, you have to have a colostomy, and you're going to have sexual dysfunction, and you're going to be incontinent. The 4th opinion said, no, there's a new procedure and we can do something different. And those are not going to be issues that you're going to be dealing with. And I never would have known that had I not pushed through to another opinion. So I'm not saying get 4 opinions, but get 2 for sure. Most importantly, early detection. Early detection saved my life. I had no chemo. I had no radiation, because I had early detection. We just lost Kirstie Alley, 71 years old, too young to die quickly of colon cancer. The only way that happens, to my knowledge, I can't speak to her exact case, is if it wasn't detected early and it advances quickly, right? So guys in particular, plenty of ladies on the call right now, like nudge your guy. But the guys that I'm talking to right now, like, dude, get checked. Women are used to getting checked. Guys are idiots when it comes to this. My second bout was melanoma. I come home from a speaking gig in Australia, of all places, and I got a thing going on the side of my chest that's kind of weird, and I don't know. And I go see a dermatologist, and she's like, yeah, that's sketchy. Same thing. Caught it early. It was melafricanoma. Like it takes you out of the game.
They call it the
And
silent killer. Yeah.
it is the silent killer. I would never have recognized this as a problem. That whole ABCD thing, like, yeah, whatever. I didn't see any of that here. Early detection, surgically removed, no chemo radiation. The third one, because I grew up in Miami and LA, I've always been out in the sun. The only hat I ever wore was a ball cap, which of course leaves the top of your ears exposed. Left me with squamous cell carcinoma on the top of my ear. And now what they do is they do what's called a Mohs procedure, where they shave a layer off, look at it under the microscope, and they keep doing that until they get a clear margin. So, I mean, I'm a poster child for early detection. You've got to be your own healthcare advocate. And guys in particular, like, just go get tested. Don't be an idiot.
Yeah, definitely on that. My wife's in dermatology, Bill, so I know all about the Mohs
Well, there you
procedures
go.
and everything else, and the skin checks. And Jason Purcell, who who's my
Yeah,
best friend for 40 plus years, was over last night, and she was trying to educate him on a little more sunscreen care. he
right.
asked,
For
he
sure.
said, "What can you do to help me with this get rid of this sun damage?" And I told him get a time machine.
Well, you tell your bride that I finally broke down and bought the sleeves, the SPF
hmm
sleeves for when I'm
Yep.
playing golf. I hate every second of it, but they're better than they used to be. They kind of breathe now, and because there's just a point where you're growing barnacles all the time, and some of them are innocuous and they're no problem, and some of them will kill you. So let's just be smart about the sun, ladies and gentlemen, right?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But I wanted people to hear that, just because, first of all, let's make sure we do get tested and those types of things. And if you do test positive, it's not the end of the world. We can get through that and work through that in a lot of cases.
Absolutely.
But it just gives you, I can't even think of a better term to say. It gives you more street cred, Bill, as a coach. You survived all these other things. So when people come to you with problems or adversity, hey, this is what I did to overcome that, right? This is how I found
I
my
got scar
best.
tissue, baby.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And this is how I found my incredible partner later in life and all these things. And I think that a lot of times people don't appreciate that. And from a coaching seat, and me coaching now, and obviously you were a big influence on me becoming a coach, I can share adversities and things I faced
Oh,
early in
dude.
life and now and everything else. And I think it's our responsibility from the coaching chair
Yeah.
to share our losses more than our wins.
I really think that's important, and I want people to hear that. I interviewed a guy this morning that I don't know. He'll loan officer. He'll do 150 million this year, which this year is a big deal.
hmm
That's a lot of volume. And the very first thing he wanted to talk about is he said, "Coach, before you talk about all the cool things that I'm doing right now, I just want to be honest with people and say in October I was in a funk. I was like, I'm not loving the business right now. Like this is not a good time. And now he is crystal clear on the actions that he needs to take. He thinks in terms of 90-day sprints, kind of that 12-week year
Yep.
mentality. And but the thing that was most endearing to him about the audience, we had about 300 people on the call, and they were like, "Oh, me too, man. I'm so glad to hear you say that." So to your point, I think sometimes sharing our losses, our failures, our scar tissue, the mistakes we've made. Um, I think we have a responsibility to do that, Chris, so that we don't just, for years, I don't want to mention any names or entities, but I used to go to a conference where the people on the stage, you just knew they were telling a story that was the story that the host kind of wanted to hear, and so it all looked good and it sounded good unless you actually knew the players, and you're like, yeah, but he's having an affair with his processor, and that one has got a problem over here. And I had one guy tell me later, he said, he literally told me this years later. He said, "Hey, we were out in Palm Springs. This was a different conference, and he would come up to me at the breaks at the conference, right? And he would say, hey, wasn't that great? That was a great speaker. I love that guy." And so on. 5 years later, he says, "So that you know, when I said I was there in the meetings, I was at an Indian casino gambling and I lost $35,000." And he's
Oh,
local here. And he's like, would you come to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting with me? Like, of course I would.
Sure.
Can you imagine how premeditated that was to be looking at the program and like, okay, I'm going to mention these speakers and I'm going to be over here like gambling. And then I'm going to come tell my coach that everything's great. So
Oh,
you guys, sometimes we've got to just peel off the mask, and quit posing and look for somebody like Chris that has been not there, but you will
right.
listen to you, has his own scar tissue, has his own life lessons, and be honest with them about your challenges and your desires and dreams and what you want to change.
Yeah, I want to transition to that. Let's talk desires and dreams because I had some stuff written down here, and I know I've seen you evolve from Building Champions, which is a great organization. I love Daniel; they've just been huge. That's how we connected. To becoming an author, a podcaster, and then now, I'll share with everybody listening. I'm sitting on a beach in Siesta Key, Florida. I just started coaching with Bill again after several years. And I'm literally sitting in a cabana. It's a Sunday morning. I'm having my mimosas, and Bill texts me and says, "Hey, we need to talk." Okay, well, if Bill Hart texts you, we need to talk. It doesn't matter what day it is. You call Bill Hart, right? So I call Bill, and he's like, "Hey, I got this opportunity of a lifetime. I hate to leave you, but this is what I've got to do." Of course, I was upset at first for me personally because I'm like, "Oh man, we just started. We just started." Now, this is what Bill did for me though. Most coaches wouldn't do that. He said, "Chris, if you'll keep us on the calendar once a month, I will do a call with you once a month as long as you want to." So that was a win for me, but also a win for someone who I consider a very close friend. And
Hey, can I just interrupt you and tell you,
yep,
I haven't seen any payments over those past few months. Like my Venmo account, I've been checking it, Chris, and there's like,
you need to get the Venmo account to me. But
so do you want me to speak into the opportunity or do you want to explain where I landed and what it is?
well, you ended up going to Movement Mortgage, which is a great organization. I mean, we all see Casey, and just he leads from the front, and he's
Yep.
not hiding during adversity and all those things. And if you didn't tell me where you're going, I probably could have guessed on two or three guesses just because I know your values and who you are as a person and where you would fit. But let's talk about that transition from being a paid coach, people pay you, right, to then going to work for an organization. And I
Yeah.
don't know the dynamic there, but it's got to be a different dynamic because I coach clients that pay me right now, but then I
Yep.
also coach people internally in the company, and it's a different dynamic, right? It's a different
It's very different.
situation.
Yeah. So that's a very perceptive question, but I guess because you've had both experiences, most people don't appreciate that. And really, I didn't. For 20 years, we figured, I think, 12 or 14,000 hours in the coach's chair, like a lot of coaching in the mortgage business. That's all I coach. A few top realtors here and there, but mostly the mortgage industry. And people were paying me $1,000 to $2,000 an hour for coaching. And so because of that, Chris, there's a way that people show up for that kind of coaching that implies I have skin in the game. I am invested in this. I want to make things happen. I am an implementer. Let's roll. It's different when that's not paid for. Now, movement, interestingly enough, has moved from, we're in the middle of it right now, a free coaching model. So we had offered before I joined the company free coaching to anybody inside the company, which meant coaching was actually a line item for Movement Mortgage and cost us a couple $1 million a year to keep coaches on staff, and we just paid them and did what we did, and ultimately it came back so that now we're at a point where we're rebuilding a different model. So there's that, but in terms of my coaching, the only thing really that's different is, in essence, what happens. Well, that's not true. I should say, from a monetary perspective, the only thing that's different is the way that we currently have it structured is on the sales side, not ops. We don't charge ops anything, but on the sales side, we subsidize the coaching. So because it's internal and I'm coaching them, we charge them a fraction of what they would have paid me retail, through Building Champions, what you were paying me. But they still got to have skin in the game, man, because I'm not, and that would be my coaching to you, like, make sure they're paying for it, because skin in the game matters. You can tell me it doesn't, and I can argue, I will fight you on that. Like I cannot think of a single example I cannot think of a single example where somebody who wasn't paying for coaching in some fashion had the same level of engagement and intensity as someone who was paying for it. So there's that. Now on the upside, I mean, those people are making a fraction of what successful salespeople are making, and they're hungry, Chris. I don't know if you're coaching anybody in ops, but man,
I'm not. No.
they're hungry. Like, you can imagine we've gone through rifts, right, in a downturn, and now there's a perception that suddenly like underwriters are being sticklers about details, and the truth of the matter is agencies are now saying, we let stuff go when things were busy because things were busy, and now we got to tighten up, and so now we look like ops looks like suddenly we're being sticklers. Like, no, we're being held to it. We have to do this, right? So
Aunt Fanny and Uncle Freddie have jumped in a little bit there, right? Yeah.
right, pretty much. So anyway, it is different. The other dynamic that's interesting is I've always coached people with inside the same company, like 8 with this company, 10 with that company, 14 with that company. So I knew players, and I coached this person and this person's boss, and I always said the same thing I'm sure you say, which is we have complete anonymity. Unless you tell me that I can share something, I'm going to assume that I can't. But it's different because I've essentially got a seat in the C-suite, and they know that. They know that I coach the president of our company. They know that I coach most of our senior executives. And so I will tell you, it's a challenge earning trust that transcends that. It's gotten there after a year and a half, but that was a hurdle I didn't see coming.
Yeah, I get that definitely, and I'm in the same boat when it comes to the paid versus non-paid. And so I've had to start doing certain things. There's certain criteria they have to do every week to qualify for their coaching call, right?
Nice.
But if they don't show up ready to go, my time's very valuable, and I'm not trying to say that because I'm cocky or arrogant or anything else. But I have people paying $1,500 for 4 half-hour sessions a month. That's what they pay me, right? So when I'm letting you come in and get the same information that I work very hard every weekend to bring content to my coaching clients and employees, I want you to come with the same intensity that I have.
Good for you.
And I don't think that's asking much.
So I don't think it is asking much, and I'm going to give you a line that Daniel Harkavy, the founder of Building Champions, shared with me 20 years ago, which is I've used it multiple times, and that is in that moment to say, here's the thing. You don't need a paid friend. I'll be your friend for free. But if we're going to coach, here's the level of expectation that I require. Like, you got to get your work done. You got to show up on time, and you've got to do what's necessary. And Chris, this is that weird grace and truth paradox, Dude, it's a paradox. Like, there's a time to exhibit grace. Brother, I love you. I get it. Totally understand. No worries. But there's a time to say, this is the third time. This is not okay. I got people that want to be coached. This is the last 10 years of my career. And I would say, I've literally got a waiting list of people with money in hand saying, I want to coach with Bill. And I'm having to say no to them. And you're not showing up, and you're not investing, and you're not doing the action plans. I love you. I'll hang out with you. I'll have a beer with you, but I don't want to coach you.
That is so good. Like, Bill, that just demonstrates what an elite coach you are, because so many people out there are calling themselves coach these days just to make a check, and they don't care if people show up and how they get there or whatever. I mean,
absolutely.
I don't coach for the money. That's right. Not why I do it. Right. I don't, and honestly.
Oh, you're taking a pay cut when you're coaching. Yeah.
Yeah. So years ago when we first met, I did everything for the money. That's just what my mindset was. And I didn't know any different from that. And it caused a lot of issues throughout my life. When I stopped doing everything for the money and I started doing it because I wanted to help people and I wanted to feel good about what I was doing, the money just started flowing. Like,
it just works, man.
Like
every time.
This river of I spoke at an event in Charleston a few weeks ago, and someone had bowed out of the event. And I'd sent a video to the guy Adam. I'd sent a video to him, and I said, hey, someone bows out. Let me have a shot, right? He said, okay, great. You can have the shot, but I need you to speak about wealth building strategies and all this. Well, I know some wealth building strategies. I'm not a financial advisor or anything else, but I got on stage and I told the story of all the difficulties I'd had with money throughout my life from the time I was a
Nice.
young kid until I decided to change my habits. And
Yeah.
then I went into wealth building strategies. So I wouldn't be able to do the things that I've done without having a baseline for understanding what success looks like as a coach and a speaker. You're my baseline, just so you know. You're my John Maxwell that Adam has. Adam's real close to John Maxwell. So
Nice.
Bill Hart is my John Maxwell. And if you don't have that relationship, if you don't have the John Maxwell or the Bill Hart in your life, you got to go find them. You got to
Yeah.
find them. And
Yeah,
there's
I agree,
plenty of
man.
people out there that are willing to help and give. And then you get to a level, to a point where you can afford to pay. And look, there's a price of admission to get in some of the rooms that we get in these days. And Bill, you've done the work for years to get in there. I'm on my way there to getting into these rooms and connecting
Yes,
with
you are.
people. And I want to share a strategy that I use. I don't know if I told you the story or not. Do you know who Damon West is?
I don't recall.
He wrote the book, The Coffee Bean by John. Him and John Gordon wrote a book called The Coffee Bean. So I wanted to meet him personally and get in touch. I knew he was going to speak at the event I was at. I found out he liked Jordan tennis shoes. So I bought a pair of Jordan shoes, found out his size. I wrote
Wait.
a handwritten note.
I got to interrupt you. How'd you find out? How did you know
His
this?
size?
No, how did you know? Well, that's a great question, but how'd you know he
Okay.
liked Jordans?
So I see him on social media wearing Jordans,
Nice.
right? So I DM'd him and he responded to me like, "Hey, you always wear Jordan 1s?" He's like, "Oh, 3s are my favorite." And we started talking back and
Oh,
forth. I
that's
said,
so good, dude.
yeah. And I just said, "Hey, just curious, what size Jordans do you wear?" He's like, a 10 and a half. What size do you wear? I'm like, "Oh, I wear a 14. So we just kind of talked back and forth.
Yeah.
I got his address. I bought a pair of 3s online, his size, 10 and a half. I sent a handwritten note with one shoe. And I said, "Damon, I appreciate you sharing everything. If you'll do a 15-minute Zoom call with me, I just want to touch base with you and learn more from you. I will send you the other shoe." And I put my phone number in there. I get a phone call from Damon West. And he's like, "Chris," he leaves me a voicemail because I was busy, of course. He's like, yeah, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, Chris. I can't wait to connect. So I did a Zoom with
That's
him.
so good, dude.
And him and I have hit it off. So I'm doing this now. I have got a stack of Jordans that I'm sending out to certain people I want to get in touch with.
That is so good.
And the reason I share that with you guys is because this is a great way to connect with other people other than,
Oh, yeah.
"Hey, can I pick your brain? Can I this or whatever?" Find out what they like, send them something that's only part of it, and then they're going to connect with you.
So good, brother. I love that strategy. I love the ballsiness of that. That's a bold move that most people won't do. And what an incredible door opener. Well done. Classic Chris Welton.
Well, I got to be honest. I did take that from someone else, which I'm really good at doing. I call
Whatever.
it R&D. I rip off and duplicate. So
No doubt.
I took
No
that
doubt.
from Brad Lee, but I'm executing.
Nice.
Everything I've done in my life, I learned from somebody else, and I think we all do.
So let's just speak to that for a second, because I do think sometimes people struggle with that. I think the critical thing is to do what you just did, is then you give credit, right? There's a thing in the speakers world, and you might learn this from Adam if you haven't already, where every speaker's got a signature story, right? So you can tell somebody else's, another speaker's story, but you can't tell their signature story without giving them credit. So if you're a top producer or a top producer to be, and you're not doing R&D on what other top producers are doing, then you're just relying on some kind of, I don't know, divine intervention to create something new. But you know what, bud? There's enough great, brilliant ideas and strategies out there that probably aren't being deployed in your local market. Like, run towards that. You know, for years, Chris, I interviewed top producing realtors. And for years, a lot of you that have been in the business for a while will have heard these. Top realtors all had, depending on the market, they either had a guaranteed sale program or a easy exit listing agreement. So it depended on if you were in a buyer or a seller's market. But it was like all the top realtors in each market did the same thing. And it's all because they heard somebody at some conference and they just swipe and adapt. So run towards your R&D. It's the way to build your business.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I had a guy the other day, we were talking about something, he goes, "Doesn't that sound a little gimmicky?" I'm like, "Gimmicky? It works." Like, it's
Exactly.
gimmicky because you're afraid to do it, right? So let's just take action. So we're
Totally.
getting close to the end, but I want to. So I'm a coaching. I work at Movement Mortgage. I'm sitting across the call with you, Bill, and I'm like, I don't know what to do, Bill. The market has just gone in the direction I never saw it coming. I don't know what to do. What does that sound like? I know that's probably a 4-hour call, but give me just a couple minutes of what Bill Hart would say there.
So I'm not coaching very many LOs these days, and those that I do are usually doing a lot of volume. So hopefully I'm not hearing that conversation. But if I did hear that conversation, I would tell them that, there's a fork in the road, and you just need to look at it. The one fork is to just say, it's been a good run, and when the phone was ringing and rates were low and everybody that wanted to refi, and it was a good market, and it was a good run, and now I'm going to go sell Chryslers or shoes at Nordstrom, and see you later. And for those of you listening right now, like, if you're not going to be all in, like, to your point, the name of my podcast, by the way, shameless plug, then leave, then be all out, right? Like, go away. But if you're struggling with that right now, I would just say you've got to find your avenue, the place where you're going to focus. So the guy that I interviewed this morning, I was just telling you, that was in the funk in October, that'll do 150 million this year. His thing was, I am going to double down on the realtors that matter to me. For him, not for everybody, but for most people, certainly realtors are great referral partners. But as well as I do, Chris, if all you do is start just hammering the phone like, hey, can we get together? Hey, can we have lunch? Hey, it's not going to take you anywhere. So what he does is he hits them on social, and he's got a 10-10-10 program. We've all heard stuff like this before, but for him, he just logs in. He's got a way to delineate all of his realtors that he's targeting on Facebook in one feed, so that he doesn't have to look at everybody else's cat videos and cappuccinos and whatever, unless they're realtors, cats and cappuccinos. And he does 10 likes, 10 comments, and 10 direct messages a day. And so in the same way, not quite as aggressive as you went after the Jordan play, he's looking for conversation. It's just relationship development, right? Like, hey, saw that this thing happened. Cool thing that you've got going on over there. Love that charity. And at some point, the conversation comes around to buy downs or whatever the hot conversation is right now. And what the difference is with what he does and what average loan officers do, and you know this as a top producer yourself and those that work for you and that you coach, he then engages in a conversation when they say, hey, can you send me something on that? Which is normally I want to get out of this call and I don't want to talk to you anymore moment, right? He says, I'd be happy to do that. My experience is that it's going to generate a lot of questions. And honestly, I can swing by and in 5 minutes, we can blast through some of this stuff, because here's what I know. With conversations like this, there's probably $35,000 to $45,000 in commissions for you next year that we might be able to uncover. I'd love to have that conversation with you.
That is so
That's what
powerful.
I would do.
Yeah, no, I love that. And if you're in sales and play that back, get your notepad out and play that back. That's separating him from everybody else that's calling, because everybody's calling right now. Right, everybody's calling.
Right.
Separated.
And minor point, Chris, but for those of you that have ever tracked whatever system you have, where you track your calls and so forth, most of us know F2F, right, as face to face. He made an interesting point today. He said, I got to be honest, I view Zoom, which is essentially what we're doing here, as a face to face. And I think he's right. I think there's something that happens in a person's brain that says, I met with him, check. Doesn't matter if it's through a camera and a monitor or if it's face-to-face in Starbucks. Like, I think that's a face-to-face call. So step your game up on social and use it as a tool, man. It's game-changing right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. So let's, as we finish up here, what's the best way for people to connect with Coach Bill Hart?
Dude, I am easy to find. Like, just coachbillhart.com. Google Coach Bill Hart. You'll find me everywhere. My website, coachbillhart.com. If I can ever be of value, if I can share something with you, it's my pleasure. Got a podcast, got a book. It's all available online. You'll find it. So I'm easy to find. Thank you.
I'll put that in the show notes. I'll have all your contact information in there. If someone wants to hire you to come speak and break down The White Collar Warrior, which is an incredible book, if you're in sales and haven't read that yet, you're missing out. But if they wanted, are you still available even though you're with
Oh yeah.
movement? Are you allowed to come and, okay.
Oh yeah, yeah. And surprisingly, it still happens more than I would have expected. You sort of think you'd be kind of off the shelf once you work for one company, right? But the truth of the matter is that I think people know me and they know that I'm not there to proselytize. That's not what I'm doing. I just want to bring value. So, yeah, it'd be my honor to do that. Bill.hart@movement.com. Probably the easiest way to find me. And Chris, I'll send you my Linktree link if you're familiar with that. It's probably the easiest
Yeah,
way.
I
Somebody
am.
taught me
Yep.
recently that
Yep.
it's just you can have all your stuff there, right? And
I
on
stole that from you
Instagram.
too, by the way.
Okay, nice, nice, nice. On Instagram, where we
Mhm.
all say link in bio,
Mhm.
right? But then you got to change the link. You can have
Yep.
multiple links with
Yes.
linktree.com. So check that out. But I'll send it to you
Yeah.
so you can put it in
Yeah,
the
please
show
do, and I'll
notes.
put that in the notes so people can
You
get to
bet.
that. That's such a huge advantage for people to be able to connect with you like that. That's like I'm a football program, and I can. What do you mean? I can hire Bill Belichick to come and talk to my people? Like, are you kidding me? So that's
Right?
that's. I mean, seriously, think what an advantage that is, right? So
It's so cool.
yep, definitely. So, man, it has been such a pleasure to have you spend some time with me, Bill. I mean, like, I knew it was going to be great because we always have great conversations, anyways. But now we have got some other people that are going to be able to check this out and
Yeah.
see who you are and see where Chris Welton learned how to become a coach. And I think that's
Yeah,
just
man.
just a huge opportunity for us.
Well, buddy, it's been my pleasure, and I want to tell everybody that's listening and or watching right now that if you have a chance to get inside Chris Welton's space, this guy is a no bullshit. Let's get down to it. Let's make some results happen guy. And if he's available to you now as a coach or as a presenter, you need to gobble him up because this guy connects with people's hearts and heads, and he can have an impact on your life or your organization's life. So, Chris, I'm glad you're putting yourself out there, buddy. The world's going to be a better place as a result.
Man, thank you so much, Bill. It's
My
been my
pleasure,
pleasure
man.
for sure. Thank you so much for tuning in to the One Hand at a Time podcast today. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. I'm often asked if I'm available for speaking opportunities or accepting new coaching clients. The answer is yes. Feel free to click the Calendly link in the show notes to set up a 30-minute call with myself. And remember, as we move forward in life, we do it one hand at a time.